After visiting more than 100 countries and every single country in Europe, I had one question that I couldn't get off my mind. Which countries get the most tourists on every single year? So I went and did some research, scoured the internet, and I found the top 10 most visited countries by tourists. In this video, I'm going to break down the top 10 most popular tourist destinations, and then I'm going to rank them on a tier list. Having visited each one of these countries multiple times, I believe I have a really unique perspective to offer on this subject. Hey, and one disclaimer before we get started, I love traveling. I would never want to persuade people not to visit somewhere. And just because I didn't love the country doesn't mean you won't absolutely have an amazing time there. So just keep that in mind while you're watching this video, and especially where I'm a little bit more critical. So before we dig in, I want to say that some of these destinations were actually pretty surprising, and I think you're going to be shocked by some of the answers. We're going to start off at the bottom with number 10 and work our way up to the most visited country in the world for tourists. After visiting every country in Europe, I was pretty shocked to see this country on the list for most visited destinations in the world. Being a top 10 list, I thought there would be a lot of other countries on this list, but the country I'm talking about is Austria. Now, Austria received more than 31 million tourists in 2023 alone. Now, again, Vienna and Austria are very beautiful countries, and the city of Vienna is a really beautiful place, but I just found some charm missing when I was visiting there. I think the issue is, a lot of times, myself included, people visit Prague, Budapest, and Vienna all on one single trip. This is a popular travel path called the Central European Triangle. And I think that's part of the reason I didn't like Vienna on its own. Still, when sandwiched between a few of my favorite cities in Europe, Prague and Budapest, it just doesn't really stack up, especially when you're visiting them side by side. Vienna, just to me, always felt like a stale destination. The food was okay, the people were okay, nothing just blew me away. And it just seemed to have a lacking atmosphere that made me truly want to go back again. I've been to Austria about 4 or 5 times, and I kept thinking that the next time that light bulb was going to click for me, and especially in Vienna. However, I did love the mountains, and outside of the city of Vienna, there's villages like Salzburg or some of these smaller mountain towns. So overall, after considering all these factors and not really finding anything that I loved about the country after going back 4 or 5 times, I'm going to give Austria a D tier list and put it towards the bottom of the rankings. Now, one of the most popular destinations in the world is also one of the oldest cultures and countries in the world. It has beautiful islands, some of my favorite food, and it's got so many beautiful tourist destinations. I can see why it's on this list. The country I'm talking about is Greece. Did you know that Greece has more archaeological museums than any other country in the world? Greece received more than 32 million tourists in 2023, and the country Greece is absolutely a stunning destination to visit. Outside of Athens, which gets a lot of mixed reviews, and before I went to Greece for the first time, I had heard about 90% of people really dislike Athens. So I had a pretty interesting mindset going in there. Overall, though, Greece is one of my top destinations, and some of the islands that I absolutely loved were Zakynthos, Corfu, and Rhodes. But I found a few of the island destinations like Santorini and Mykonos to be pretty overrated. And Athens, I actually really liked it more than most people I've talked to. With so many great museums, really great food, and vibrant nightlife, I kind of liked Athens overall, and I would suggest people spend at least 2 to 3 days there to explore the city a little bit. Overall, I love Greece. I've been there about 6 or 7 times, and I always have an amazing trip. Even if some of the places are a little bit overrated, I still had a great time. Overall, I'm going to give Greece an A tier list ranking. If you love castles, beer, and highways with no speed limits, you're going to love this next country, and I can see why it is one of the most popular tourist destinations in the world. What I'm talking about is Germany. Did you know that Germany is actually home to one of the world's largest beer festivals, Oktoberfest, which draws in 6 million visitors annually? So the country received more than 35 million tourists in 2023, and Germany is an absolute beast for tourism. One of the funny things is that most people realize that Oktoberfest actually doesn't start in October, but it starts in September. And that's going to be a few of the things that you see about when visiting Germany. There's just some things that don't add up. In general, my experience were fairly mixed. So overall, Germany just never really clicked for me. I absolutely loved Munich, but nobody else really blew me away. My favorite activities in Germany were renting a supercar and driving on the Autobahn with no speed limits, exploring castles. But the main cities like Munich, Berlin, and some of these other places like Frankfurt, it just didn't really click. There was just not much in the atmosphere, and I wouldn't say I loved Germany, but I still had a really good time overall. So this is why I would rate Germany in the D tier for me. Again, there's a lot to see in Germany, but it just didn't click for things that I was really enjoying. This country is one of the most popular tourist destinations. It has royalty, more than 7,000 pubs in the city center, and some of the most historical and beautiful museums that I've ever visited in the world. This country I'm talking about is the United Kingdom. The UK received more than 37 million tourists in 2023, and the UK offers a mix of history, natural beauty, and just so many things to do outside of London. London in particular is a bustling metropolis with endless activities. It does have a higher cost and pretty rainy weather, which are some of the drawbacks, but overall, I loved London and I love visiting more outside of the UK. I had the pleasure of visiting more than just London, and I had a month or so to explore outside of London, go to places that are a little bit smaller, a little bit less traveled for tourists. And overall, I would rank the UK as a B tier because there is just something unique to London and to the country. It has its own history, its own culture, and even though the food gets hit on, there is some amazing food to be found throughout the country, and especially Indian food. So the UK offers a lot for just about everyone, and that's why I'm going to give it a B tier ranking. This next country is one of the most popular destinations for Americans, and it has beautiful beaches, some of my favorite cuisine in the entire world. And the country I'm talking about is Mexico. Did you know Mexico is home to the world's largest pyramid, which is even larger than Egypt's Great Pyramid of Giza? The country had more than 42 million tourists in 2023, and Mexico has so many places to offer. It's such a diverse country with something for everyone. So on the flip side though, there are some serious safety concerns in Mexico. I've had run-ins with the police where they try to basically get bribes from you. And there's just been certain situations in certain areas where you're going to feel very unsafe. The popularity of tourism has also really driven up the prices to only be about 10 to 20% cheaper than the United States in some places. So the value is kind of diminishing every single year. Despite this though, Mexico has some of my favorite food in the world, some of the nicest, most friendly people I've ever met. And I heard a Mexican person say this to me on explaining the people in Mexico. They're either really, really good or they're really, really bad. That's kind of the experience that I saw in Mexico. And so overall, I give Mexico a B tier ranking. There's something for everyone, but again, I didn't find that one destination in Mexico where I would want to live longer term. Now, the next most popular tourist country in the world is where the East meets the West, where Europe turns into Asia, and what I'm talking about is Turkey. Did you know that Turkey has more ancient Greek ruins than Greece itself? It attracted more than 55 million tourists in 2023. And Turkey is one of the top travel destinations in the world for tourists. Istanbul's historical sites are a must visit. However, outside of Istanbul, there are some destinations that are pretty popular, but again, they can feel quite overcrowded and commercialized. I've only had the pleasure of visiting Istanbul, but I've been there about 3 or 4 times, so I've got a good feel about the main tourist centers. There are a lot of great destinations that I hear absolutely wonderful things about, but for this reason, I wasn't really blown away with Istanbul on my last trip. I'm going to go back there again to see how it is, but for now, I'm going to give Turkey a C-tier destination. And the reason behind that is the people were pretty friendly, but there is some safety concerns visiting there. The prices are pretty good, but overall, it just didn't really click for me as being this amazing tourist destination. So I would prefer to go to somewhere else outside of Turkey, but in general, I would say it was a pretty mediocre trips the last times I've been there. Now, this next destination is one of the most popular tourist destinations, and I was actually surprised that it wasn't number 1. This country has some of the best food, the best culture, the best music, the best weather. And again, for me, it checks the most boxes of any destination in the world. And what I'm talking about, of course, is Italy. Now, Italy is where beauty, art, history, and mouth-watering cuisine all come together. Did you know Italy is home to the world's oldest university, the University of Bologna, founded in 1088? Italy received more than 57 million tourists in 2023 alone. Italy has famous cities like Rome, Florence, and Venice that are brimming with cultural treasures, while the picturesque Amalfi Coast offers breathtaking views. Having spent and explored Italy, I've been to about 25 different cities and villages over the last 10 or 15 years. I can confidently say that Italy deserves an S-tier ranking for its absolutely unparalleled charm and beauty. Overall, I love Italy. It checks so many boxes. I was just there not too long ago. I got to visit some beautiful places like the Dolomites, which is an absolutely breathtaking mountain area of northern Italy. And the food, the culture, and everything in between. I just always feel so good when I travel to Italy. I'm surprised this wasn't number one on the list, to be honest, because it is such a popular tourist country. Again, there is something for everyone in Italy, and you really can't go wrong. All I suggest is to try to get outside of the main tourist destinations. Go to a few of these smaller towns, like the Dolomites. We went to Sestre Levante this past year, which was absolutely beautiful. No tourists, beautiful beaches, and a much calmer place to visit on the coast. Now, I knew this country was going to be high on the list, but with some of the most diverse culture, some of the most diverse landscapes as well, and one of the biggest countries in the world, again, the United States is one of the most popular tourist destinations. In 2023 alone, the US had more than 66 million tourists. Again, there is just something for everyone in the US. Whether you're going to New York, Miami, Los Angeles, Vegas, they're so different, and all the cities really do have something for everyone. I'm from the States, so a lot of this stuff just isn't as appealing to me, but I do understand why there are so many people trying to go to the US because it's very unique from movies, from culture, and everything in between. There is a lot of beautiful landscapes. We invented the national parks, which is one of the best things America has done. So there is really something for everyone, and I'm going to give the United States an A-tier ranking. Maybe I'm a little biased, but again, I just think there's so many different options for just about everyone. The next most popular destination in the world for tourists is a place where people go out to eat around 11. They stay out partying every single night. They have a vibrant food culture, very into partying, but again, have that really nice work-life balance and beautiful beaches and one of the most popular party islands in the world. What I'm talking about is Spain. Did you know that Spain actually produces more than 50% of the world's olive oil? And it's no surprise to me that Spain was high on this list. Ranking in number 2, Spain had 85 million tourists in 2023. There's so many architectural marvels like Barcelona and Madrid. There's bustling nightlife in both of these cities, and the party capital of the world is in Ibiza. There's stunning beaches on the coast, and there's so many good food options in Spain. The locals are friendly, they like to party, and this is as a result gives Spain an A-tier ranking for its lively and diverse offerings. The top most visited country in the entire world is known for its romance, just held the Olympics, and is going to be a place that's pretty famous for food, but also famous for terrible service. The country I'm talking about is France. France is the most visited country in the world with over 100 million tourists visiting in 2023. Despite its popularity though, I found France to be somewhat overrated, overcrowded, and particularly the service industry was just extremely rude. I've had the pleasure of visiting Paris 6 or 7 times, the south of France a handful of times, and all over the country. But for whatever reason, I just never really vibed with France. I just don't think it was for me. Again, every time I went there, I just felt that Italy did everything with a little bit better positivity, a little bit better charm. And I just felt like maybe I'm slightly biased, but I always preferred Italy over France in just about every single way. So for these reasons, I know people love Paris and love France, but France lands in the F tier for me as it just never lived up to the hype. I kept wanting it to be that next good place. I found Paris to have very lackluster nightlife, the people to be quite unfriendly, and I've never seen so many fights happen in one night. I saw about 5 fights break out over the course of 6 hours on a Friday night out in Paris. Again, I just think it is becoming one of the most dangerous cities in Europe, and there's a reason that it's on a downward trend. I think a lot of people overhype it because it's famous in movies and TV shows, but overall, I just didn't like it that much to give it a good rating. Again, the number 1 on the list for most tourists is also going to be the bottom of my list with an F tier ranking. Now, in conclusion, guys, again, this is all fun. Go have your own experiences. Go have your own adventures. Just because something made it on the bottom of my list, it could be on the top of your list. And I would love to hear where you don't agree with this. These are the most visited tourist destinations in the world. And if you learned something good from this video, or if you enjoy this type of content, make sure to subscribe for new videos I'm putting out every single week.